We're amped up, we're ready to go, we're ready to go. We've been making great progress on the body of our 1974 Porsche 911 Resto Mod project.
Which means we're gonna need an engine for it soon. So we sourced one from a salvage yard. Now we're gonna find out if we made a mistake.
Find out this week on Junkyard Wars. I mean, Crucible Coachworks. Please don't sue us. That's what today.
All right, so what we have here is a 3.2 liter engine out of a 1986 911 Carrera. We're going to disassemble it so we can completely rebuild it to higher performance specs. It's going in our project that's over in the body shop. Ryan's working on it. It's a 1974 911 Targa that was converted to a cabriolet back in the 80s. We went over all of that work and redid it to our quality. Now it's waiting on an engine that's more appropriate to the build. And this is it. We have sourced a core engine, so we really don't have any history on what this engine is. We're gonna rebuild it. We're gonna take it up a notch like we talked about, but it's always nice to have some idea of what was going on in the engine's history before we got it. And one thing we know for sure, when your exhaust looks like this, and your engine tin looks like this, you know the exhaust was replaced. It's the first step in our automotive archaeology. We're gonna dig a lot deeper. A lot of dirt in there. Thing to remember is this is all covered up by the valve cover. All right, so we got this salvage yard engine stripped down to basically what is called a long block. Long block means that the cylinder heads are on, so this is kind of like valve cover to valve cover, just your basic engine. The way we got it was a complete engine. Eventually we'll get this down to the short block, which is basically no cylinder heads. Pistons down to the crank. No. Perfect. So now we'll start by taking the covers off and getting the cylinder heads off. That's next. Actually, that's not next. Actually, what's next is getting the valve covers off, then the rocker arms and camshafts, and then the cylinder heads. So interesting, sometimes when people put things back together, they don't have all the right hardware, so they just grab what's laying around. You will find here we have one shore washer, which has all these little ribs, compared to all of the rest are a wavy washer. Use what you got, but we always make sure we have the right things, so what we got is right. All right, so we got the cylinder heads off, and there's a little bit more story here. So a couple of things. One, if you look right here, what do you notice that's different between these three, Logan? Middle one, notice this? Yeah. Much less carbon in here. And you also notice there's a lot more oil right here. And if you look real closely here, you can see that the marks that run in this area, you're not seeing at the bottom. I think what we had was we were losing some compression more on this cylinder than the other one. And this cylinder wasn't firing like those two were, which may be a result of an earlier cylinder head stud situation or just overall fatigue from the engine. Another thing you'll notice, see that little guy right there? See that little half moon shape right there? Yep. That is the result of one of these valves kissing that piston. And this is like a Luke and Leia situation. Oh. You just don't want to see them kiss. So either an over revving situation or an out of time situation. It doesn't look like it was probably that hard, but yeah, two parts came in contact with each other that are never supposed to. Oh, look at that. Somebody's got a little paint mark. Isn't that cute? Looks like a paint mark to me. Kind of lined up with that. Pretty much irrelevant on a 911 engine when you're setting up the timing. That isn't how you do it. The inner workings of the internal combustion engine. We'll go backwards here because this end's already up. As the crankshaft turns, you will see that there is a chain that then turns this sprocket. So that turns the camshaft. You'll see that as this camshaft with the little bumps on it, when the bump comes around, pushes on that end of the rocker, pushes that end, and that is what opens the valve. Logan, do you know why it's called a boxer engine?
No, I don't.
On the pistons, when they're going up and down, because they're laid out like this, the pistons are going like this.
Ah, nice.
Like a boxer.
Buddy, what are you doing?
What am I doing?
Yeah.
Boxing.
I'm showing the people how the engines work.
The people. Hello, the people.
Yeah. So I was telling them about the boxer engine.
Oh.
You're cylinders 1 through 3, and I'm cylinders 4 through 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, that's pretty good.
I think I'm down a cylinder. Like, we were like Rock'em Sock'em robots, except if you had red gloves on, it'd be perfect.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah. We do like the.
Yeah. Yeah. Stick your jaw out.
No thanks.
So I like to heat the cam housings up a little bit before I try and remove the rocker arm shafts. They're supposed to be pretty snug. That's the only thing that holds them in is friction when you clamp them down. So you don't want to mess up these bores at all. Aside from the shafts walking out later, you could end up with oil leaks, and nobody wants either one of those things. Pushes out pretty easily. Since this is aluminum, these are steel, it doesn't take too much heat for that to just give us an extra thousandth or two clearance. And it just pushes right out. Do you have a Carrera with bore scoring? I can make you a great deal on this 3.8 liter engine. Oh wait, this one has bore scoring too. Many times when you're replacing an engine that's known to have a particular problem, the engine you're buying has the same problem, which was exactly what we ran into when we went to replace this engine. The replacement actually had worse bore scoring than the one we were taking out. Not what you want. You always want to take all the washers off first because they can get you hung up. You try and take it apart hoping that the washers will just slide off with it. And they're hard enough to take apart without that.
What are we looking at here?
Just something for next week's video.
Well, that's cryptic.
Yeah, I like to be cryptic. There's a reason why I'm not over here right now. Eyes on your own paper.
So this is a short block. Crankcase, crankshaft in the middle, connecting rods, pistons, cylinders, done. No cylinder heads. Short block. The bottom end. When we were talking about the pistons driving the crankshaft, this is what I was talking about. It's going to be a little hard to accomplish because everything's loose, but you can kind of see when technically what would be happening is the piston would be turning the crankshaft, but you're at the top and the spark plug fires, the explosion pushes this piston down, and that's what turns the crankshaft. And you can see some of that motion will go into making the rest of the cylinders go through their cycles until they get to this one. So the next piston comes up into its position. It wouldn't be in this order, and then same thing. This one gets pushed down, turns crankshaft. You guys can let me know. Am I going too into depth into some of the stuff that I'm talking about? Is it boring you because you already know it? Do you want me to talk more about some of the other things that go on here as we do more things like this? Let me know. All right, so one of the first steps we ever take when we get a used engine in, or an engine that we don't know anything about, a leak down or compression test, depends on whether or not it's in the car, right after we do a visual inspection to make sure somebody didn't drop it off a loading dock or parts are missing or something. In order to do a leak down test, you need to take out the spark plug. You'll need to do this for each cylinder, where you'll get the piston up to top dead center. Turn the engine over till you get, in this case, to the mark. And the testers aren't all the same, but you'll hook the tester up to shop air, and hopefully the engine doesn't kick over. Oh, there we go. But you can see very little leakage. It's a very tight cylinder, so it's only 2% leakage. And while you have your spark plug out, the other thing you can do is use a bore scope to look down in and inspect the cylinder. Bore scopes have gotten much more affordable. A lot of them you buy now, like Amazon versions and whatever, they link up to your phone, so it doesn't even come with its own screen, but it has the camera. And look right down in, and there's the top of the piston, which is very clean. That just confirms what I was already told, was that this engine was rebuilt not too long ago. And there you can see the cylinder walls. And actually, the cylinder walls don't look great. It just looks like light scores, but there's a lot of them. I don't really like that. But that's what you can find if you use a bore scope. And these things are super handy, not just for looking down inside your engine. You could inspect all kinds of things on the car that you can't get your eyeball to otherwise. You know, if you get something stuck at the back of your throat, you could kind of try and fish it out and find it with that. Yeah.
This is not real medical advice, and we're not medical professionals.
Sounds like a great idea, Ryan. That's why we keep you here. So if you really want to know whether or not your engine is good, once you get it all apart, you got to clean it up and inspect it. To measure the crankshaft line bore, you need to bolt it all back together. Make sure your mating surfaces are clean, make sure your bores are clean, bolt it all together, torque it, and then you can measure it. It helps to have specific measuring tools. This is a nice one here. Find the bore you want to measure and get to your smallest measurement, and you can check that against your specs. This one, borderline, will probably make some correction for the line board, just slightly over spec on the diameter. One interesting story, I was measuring a crankcase, and our shop isn't air conditioned. We were in the middle of a heat wave, so it was in the high 90s, and I was measuring it. It was measuring out of spec, but very round. I didn't expect it to have any problems, and so I questioned it. It turned out the temperature was enough to throw off our measurements. The aluminum expanded. I took it home, set it in my air conditioning at home, and measured it again. It was perfect. One of the most common reasons that we have to take one of these engines apart and rebuild it is valve guides. They will get a lot of play in them, and that's bad. Then they don't seat properly, you don't get good combustion, and you can actually burn a valve. The two other big reasons are broken cylinder head studs. In this case, the lower head studs are made out of a different material than the uppers, and so they're more likely to break. When they break, your cylinder head will literally lift off of the top of the cylinder. When it fires, it sounds like a really bad exhaust leak, and it just beats up the engine, and it doesn't run well. The other would be oil leaks, because everyone who's had an old air-cooled engine knows oil leaks. So for our purposes, this engine's going to work out really well. The valve guides may have been an issue for us if we had wanted to use this engine as we received it. Since we're rebuilding it, we were expecting to do them anyway. So when you're using a junkyard engine, you definitely want to get one from a reputable seller, so that if you do have a problem, you can at least go back to them. They'll cover you. They won't cover your labor taking it in and out, so hopefully you did it yourself and you really enjoy doing that. If you're paying somebody, it can add up quickly. We've had lots of stories that we could tell related to installing used engines in customer cars, or never getting that far. Yeah. It can go either way. We'd like to hear your successes or horror stories related to junkyard engines.
So comment down below your junkyard wins or losses, or just shout out some advice for others who are also looking for replacement engines for their projects.
Don't forget to leave a like if you like this video.
And next week, we'll be working on the Porsche 928 wide-body project. So if you were bummed you didn't get that this week, don't worry, it's coming up soon.
We made progress this week.
Oh yeah, I've done a lot of projects and you can't see it. Ha! Until next week.